Shalom and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This vlog is about a trip that I went on to the Old City. Actually 2 trips with 2 different field trips, 2 different classes, and I've combined all the information, all my pictures and videos into this one fully loaded City of David vlog. And just a background information. The City of David is here and the current day Old City is up here. So what happened was the first settlers, the Canaanites, settled on the eastern hill, and here's the Kidron Valley, and here is the valley. It's called the valley. And eventually when the city had more people and expanded, it grew northwards. So then they had a city like this. And then over time, they expanded the city towards the eastern and the western hill. So the city's up here. And now the present day Old City is actually just up on the eastern and western hill, and it doesn't include the City of David, which is down here. So there's a lot of excavation sites, and we can go, and this is the oldest part of the actual Old City. So I got to go there, and I got to learn so much going on 2 different tours with my classes. I hope you enjoy this video. The City of David is south of the current day Old City, and it's in the area of Shalom. And the first thing we did when we entered this area is go downstairs because the older layers are lower. And the first thing we then saw was this large public building, and archaeologists are unsure exactly what this was, but it could have been a citadel or it could have been King David's palace. And this is a Proto-Ionic capital, and they believe this is from the First Temple period, and this could have been how the First Temple was decorated. It says in 1 Kings 6:35, and he carved on them cherubims and palm trees and open flowers, and covered them with gold fitted upon the carved work. So we continued southward to this stepstone structure, and this would have been a retaining wall for the large public building / palace above it. And we can read about this in Jeremiah 30:18. It says, "This is what the Lord says, I will restore the fortunes of Jacob's tents, and have compassion on his dwellings. The city will be rebuilt on her ruins, and the palace will stand in its proper place." So again, just talking about the different people coming to the same spot to build the city, and talking about the palace built on a hill, which it is today. And within the stepped area, we have Area G. And Area G has the burnt house. It also has Achiel's house. It has an ancient toilet, and it has remnants of stairs and a guard tower from the Second Temple period. Here is the Canaanite wall, right here, and up here it would have been the city, and the palace would have been on top. This is the Kidron Valley that outlines the City of David, and the Silwan village, which is an Arab village, really on top of the City of David. And here you can actually see tombs beneath the current day village, because the people obviously, they would have had their graves outside of the city. And then we went into the Canaanite tunnel, and this was a tunnel built to the spring because the water was outside of the city, and there's the original entrance. And so they built this tunnel for protection, basically, if they were at war under attack, that they could get to the water source safely. So the spring is protected by the spring tower, and this tunnel leads into the spring where there's actually a pool, the Canaanite pool, that gets the water from the spring, and then they would get their water and then walk back through this tunnel and bring it to their families. And this is all around the 8th and 10th century BC. We're at the Canaanite pool. And the Canaanite pool is actually the place where Solomon is believed to have been crowned king 4,000 years ago. And the water in this pool is from the Gihon spring. And this is Warren Shaft, another place where the Canaanites drew water. And so technically this is the next day, and we went to Hezekiah's tunnel. So where the early Canaanite tunnel was just a dry tunnel that you would walk through to get to the water, this tunnel, Hezekiah's tunnel, was actually, people wouldn't have walked through it. It was just the water flowing through it, and this water would have flown into a pool in the middle of the city. So it takes away the long trek to get the water, and instead the water's in the city. And so we got to walk through it, and at some points the water would have been up to our knees. And the amazing thing is how they built this tunnel. And so King Hezekiah had people on both sides building the tunnel because they were in a rush, because the Assyrians were coming to attack them, and they needed to protect their water system. So people from both ends started carving, and you can see on the walls the chipping marks because they had to chip this whole entire tunnel. And anyways, they met amazingly miraculously in the middle, and this is where there's this inscription that talks about how this happened. And so the water was actually redirected from the Canaanite pool, from the Gihon spring, to the Hezekiah's tunnel and to the Siloah pool. And there's actually still water in this today. It's moved from this area to the other area. But people in Israel, actually, people in Jerusalem still use this water source. Alright, so I want to give you a little bit more information. It's a bit scrambled, but just bear with me. I just want to give you some history. And so the Canaanites lived in Israel from 1550 to 1200 BC. The Canaanites, the Jebusites, the Hittites, there was actually a few different groups living in the land. And in 1271 BC, Joshua divides up the land for the 12 tribes. And this is 200 years before King David. And so it's 1271, and then around 1000, King David actually conquers Jerusalem, and this is the first time it's conquered because the Jebusites are actually still living in Jerusalem. Jerusalem was not divided up within the 12 tribes, and King David conquers this land through the Canaanite tunnel that I actually went through. So that's awesome. Okay, and King David belongs to the tribe of Judah, and Jerusalem is in between Judah and Benjamin. And so you'd think that King David would take Jerusalem for his own tribe, but really he says this will be the national capital of Israel. Okay, so David. Okay, great. So then, around 700 is the time of King Hezekiah, and Hezekiah was the one who had to redirect the water system, and he also built up other walls because the Assyrians were coming to attack. The Assyrians were attacking Israel around 722. And after that also, so they conquered the 12 tribes of the north, and they actually conquered all of the areas around Jerusalem, but Jerusalem was saved. So actually this is when Jerusalem becomes truly the holy city, because the people believe that God really protected them. And it's true, somehow the tunnel met up, everything was protected. The northern broad wall is the wall that normally people attack from, because I wanted to talk about this also. So the old city is on the eastern and western hill, and so there's the Kidron Valley, and then I told you about the valley, but it was actually filled in, and so the Hinnom Valley is on the other side. And so there's valleys around, and the north part is where people attack from. So King Hezekiah built the broad wall, and the Assyrians did not attack Jerusalem, and it wasn't until 586 to 587 the Babylonians attacked Jerusalem. They conquered it, and this was the destruction of the first temple. All right. So just a few more things. The eastern hill is Mount Moriah, and the western hill is Mount Zion, and this is where the old city is today. And like I told you, the old city today is detached from the city of David, but you can still see archaeological sites, because at one point in between the cities were connected. So today Solomon's walls are actually in between. Okay, and I want to talk about Hezekiah's tunnel a little bit more, because really it is amazing. Like I told you how they built it, which is like, I don't know how, if they had a compass, how they knew how to get to each other. But you can really see actually when you're walking through mistakes. And so they maybe turn this way and then they realize, no, it's the wrong way. You can see the chisel marks, and you can see just how they managed to cut through this rock. And it's really interesting that in the very beginning of the tunnel, it's super tall. Okay, so it's actually, we walked through the tunnel for maybe 15-20 minutes. It's a really long tunnel. And in the beginning, it's really tall, and then at some points you're squeezed and you're bending over and you're scrunched up. And the reason that they did this was not by accident. They were trying to lower down or anything. It was because they did not want the pool to overflow. So if the water was a lot from the Gihon spring, then the seawall and pool would not be overflowed, because the water would first fill up in this very high tunnel. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Okay, and I want to add another thing. This is about King David's palace. It was actually built by the Phoenicians, and we can read about this in the story of David and Bathsheba, when David sees Bathsheba down because his palace was on the mountain, and then you saw the area G, the city down here. And I don't know exactly where that is in the Bible, but you can read the story, and it really does line up with the archaeological evidence. And also you can read about Jesus and the Shalom pool, where the water was, and where the Hezekiah's tunnel brought the water. which was the reason for this again was because the city had expanded and they needed to better get the water into the city, and also because the Assyrians were coming to attack and they needed protection. Okay. And anyways, you can read, again, I don't know exactly where this is, but Jesus does miracles in the Shalom pool, and he says, I think there's a story with the mud, and he says something, put mud on your face and go rinse yourself off, I think, in the Shalom pool, and you will have sight. So, amazing, amazing, amazing. And one other random thing, Muslims believe that there will be a golden bridge over the Kidron Valley to the Temple Mount, to the mosque in the end times, which is just an interesting fact. I was at the Kidron Valley at the Temple Mount. So, anyways, a lot of information. I'm sorry it was so confusing. Really, I'm still confused, but I am learning a lot, and I'm trying to just soak everything in and try my best to understand it. I hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, please ask. And again, I'll ask my teachers. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.